My name is Melissa Carter. I was 34 years old when I was fired for attending my father's funeral. It was 6:47 a.m. on a Monday. The office in downtown Denver was still quiet, the sunrise barely touching the tops of the buildings. I had arrived early, eager to catch up on work after taking 3 days of bereavement leave, 3 days that had been officially approved by my direct supervisor, Dan Riley. I opened my laptop. Among the weekend flood of unread emails, one stood out. The subject line was simple: clear your desk by end of day. The message was worse. Human resources will handle your exit paperwork. We need people who prioritize work. The words blurred as I stared at the screen. I read the message again, thinking there had to be a mistake. 5 years. 5 years I had given Silverpath Logistics. I had led the highest performing regional team in the company. I had built a culture of excellence, connection, and loyalty. And this cold, impersonal message was how they ended it. Attending my father's funeral apparently was seen as a failure to show appropriate work priorities. As if saying goodbye to the man who taught me everything about strength and integrity was a careless indulgence I had chosen over spreadsheets. I leaned back in my chair. The familiar creak of worn leather filled the empty office space. I felt no tears, no screams rising up my throat. Only silence. A stillness I hadn't known in weeks. Then, I took a deep breath. I pulled out my phone. I took a photo of the email. I forwarded it to my personal inbox. And I began to pack. There was no dramatic confrontation, no shouting match in Dan's office. Just me. A woman who had given everything and realized, in a single morning, how little it had meant to those who signed her paycheck. The story wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I stood by my desk, methodically wrapping small pieces of my career in layers of newspaper. A cactus in a white ceramic pot, a holiday gift from my team last Christmas. A framed photo of us at the company retreat in Breckenridge laughing, arms slung over each other's shoulders. A few handwritten thank you cards from past interns and team members. 5 years of building something that felt like family now reduced to a cardboard box. I didn't pack quickly, I moved with purpose. Calm, deliberate, detached. By 7:15, Tanya from accounting arrived. Her eyes went wide when she saw the box on my desk. "Melissa, what's going on?" "I've been let go," I replied quietly. "What? Why?" "For attending my dad's funeral," I said, still folding a sweatshirt from my drawer. Apparently that didn't show proper work prioritization. Her face twisted, first confusion, then disbelief, and finally anger. "You need to talk to Paula, the regional manager. She wouldn't let this happen." "I'm not going to fight it, Tanya," I said softly, "but I will remember it." And I did. By 8, the office began to fill. Jason, my logistics coordinator, showed up next. When I told him, his smile vanished. "This is total garbage. We just pulled off the Newbridge merger because of you. Profits are up 18%. I raised a hand to stop him. "It's done, Jason." One by one, the rest of my core team arrived: Veronica, Michael, Diane, Gabriella, Kayla. 7 people who had poured heart and energy into their work because they believed in something, because they believed in me. Veronica's voice cracked. "You can't just leave. The Wilson renewal is next week. Nobody else knows how to handle the Hernandez contract like you do." I closed the box and taped it shut. Dan made his decision. He knew all of that, and he still sent that email. Their faces were a mix of grief and fury. Ethan looked ready to punch a wall. Veronica was crying. The others stood in frozen disbelief. That's when Dan showed up. "Everyone, back to your desks, now." No one moved, not one of them. He raised his voice, more command than request. The team slowly returned to their desks, casting final glances in my direction. Dan stepped closer. "You could have handled this with more discretion," he muttered. "At least waited until the end of the day." I met his eyes. "Like the discretion you showed when you fired me over email after approving my leave?" His jaw twitched. "HR is expecting you. Let's not make this harder than it needs to be." "Don't worry," I said, lifting the box in my arms. "I won't make a scene." But I turned as I walked away. "Remember this moment, Dan. You might need it later." The Human Resources office was on the 11th floor, quiet, sterile, decorated with abstract art that meant nothing. Barbara Kent sat behind a glass desk, her smile tight and apologetic. She had only joined the company 6 months ago, and I could tell she didn't want to be part of this. "I'm sorry, Melissa," she said gently, sliding a folder toward me. "And I'm also very sorry about your father." "Thank you," I replied, opening the folder. Standard severance, 2 weeks' pay. A non-disparagement clause. A non-compete agreement barring me from working for any logistics company within 300 miles for 6 months. "Is there a reason behind this termination?" Barbara asked, her voice cautious. I pulled out my phone and showed her the email. 3 days of bereavement leave. Approved. I come back to this. Barbara's face changed. Her professional mask cracked just slightly. There were no formal warnings? No documentation? Nothing, just that. She scribbled something into a legal pad. "Give me a moment, I need to speak with legal." While she stepped out, I stared out the window behind her desk. From here I could see the South Platte River glinting under the rising sun. It reminded me of mornings fishing with my dad. He always said the river was never still, but the rocks beneath it stayed strong. "Be the rock, Melissa," he used to say, "no matter how fast the current rushes." Barbara returned 20 minutes later, composed again. "Unfortunately, Colorado is an at-will employment state. They're legally within their rights." "I understand," I said, signing the papers. But as I slid the folder back, I added, "And I'm within mine." Barbara hesitated. "Off the record, this feels wrong. If you ever want to explore your options." "I don't," I cut her off. "I'm not interested in revenge, just clarity." As I walked back through the office, I could feel the shift. Eyes followed me. My team, still at their desks, watched as I passed. There was no more outrage, just silence. A deep, shared understanding. I paused at the elevator, turned to them, and offered a small smile. My final act as their leader. Outside, the Denver air was crisp. September sunlight bounced off car windows as I loaded my box into the trunk. I sat behind the wheel, finally letting myself feel the weight of everything. 3 days to bury the man who raised me. A lifetime of service reduced to an email. But something had changed. My phone buzzed. A text from Jason. "This is wrong. What can we do?" Then another from Veronica. "Are you okay? Can we meet later?" Then Ethan. "Dane's a coward. We've got your back." One by one, messages poured in. Not from colleagues, from people I had built something with. People who still believed in me. I stared at the screen, feeling something stir in my chest, not grief, not anger. Purpose. My father always told me to wait for the right current, and then swim with everything I had. It was time. That same evening, my phone rang again. Hank Fletcher, the CEO of Everlink Transport Systems. We had met a year ago at a logistics conference in Seattle. He was one of the few executives I'd ever spoken to who actually listened when others talked. We kept in touch over the months, occasional industry banter, professional respect. He had tried to recruit me twice before. I had declined both times. "Melissa," his voice was warm but firm. "I've been hoping you'd call, though I admit I didn't expect it to be under these circumstances." Word had already traveled. This industry is small. Rumors move faster than shipments. We met the next morning in his corner office overlooking the city skyline. "I heard what happened," he said after a moment. "Saw a copy of the email too. That's not leadership. That's cowardice in a suit." I didn't argue. "I want you here," Hank said simply. "We're expanding operations across the Pacific Northwest. We need a division director, someone who's built a team, not just managed one." The words felt surreal. I wasn't expecting this." "You should have," he replied. "Your name's come up in boardrooms more times than you know. You've made waves." I paused. "There's a non-compete. 6 months, 300 miles. He nodded, handing me a printed copy. "We've reviewed it. It's vague, overly broad, and likely unenforceable in court, especially given the way you were terminated. Our legal team is ready to defend you if it comes to that." I took a deep breath. "I'll need some time to think." "Of course," Hank said, rising. "Take the weekend. Talk to whoever you need to. But know this, we want you. Not just for what you've done, but for who you are." I left the meeting with a packet of papers and a racing heart. Later that night, I sat across from Jason and Veronica at a quiet booth in a small neighborhood pub. The lights were low, the atmosphere soft. Familiar faces in unfamiliar circumstances. "How are you holding up?" Veronica asked gently.
"I'm all right," I said truthfully, tired, but focused. "Dane's a disaster," Jason muttered. "Nobody can find your files. The Henderson proposal's a mess. That's a Dan problem, I said with a small smile. Veronica leaned in. It's bigger than that. The office is talking, not just our team. Everyone. They saw what happened to you. And they're wondering if they could be next.
Jason nodded. People respected you, Mel. You didn't just run the numbers. You made them mean something.
I sat back, overwhelmed but calm.
I've had an offer, I finally said. They both stared. Everlink. I nodded. But the non-compete Jason started. Probably not enforceable, Veronica said, eyes sharp, especially with wrongful termination. I've seen those clauses fall apart under pressure. Jason's phone buzzed. Dan just called an emergency Saturday meeting. My eyebrows lifted. He never works Saturdays. Veronica frowned. Wilson account review is due Monday. No one knows your renewal strategy. I sipped my water slowly. Well, that's unfortunate. They both looked at me. Are you going to take it? Veronica asked. I haven't decided, I said, but if I do. Jason cut in, eyes steady. Would they be hiring? I didn't answer, just looked at them and smiled.
Because I already knew the answer.
Saturday morning arrived with the crisp chill of early fall. Instead of sleeping in, I had an appointment with Vincent Torres, an employment lawyer recommended by an old friend. His office was tucked inside a converted townhouse near Capitol Hill, lined with law books and decorated with awards from a dozen states. He was sharp, kind, and efficient. I handed him a copy of the termination email, the non-compete agreement, and a brief summary of the events. After 10 minutes of review, he leaned back and took off his glasses. This is textbook wrongful termination, he said plainly. Firing someone for taking approved bereavement leave? That can be argued as a breach of contract and a violation of good faith. I'm not interested in suing, I said. I just want to know my options. He nodded. Smart. Now this non-compete. 6 months, 300 miles, extremely restrictive. Courts in Colorado don't love that kind of language, especially when the employer acted in bad faith. He flipped a few pages. If you were applying to work for a competitor across the street, they might have a case. But you're being asked to lead an entire regional operation, not poach clients. And they fired me, without cause. He smiled. That strengthens your position even more. I left his office with a better understanding and a sense of freedom. By Sunday morning, my phone had turned into a live wire. Texts and calls from my former team flooded in. The emergency Saturday meeting had gone terribly. Dan was flustered, angry, and disorganized. No one could find my notes. No one could replicate my logic behind the Wilson renewal. And no one, not a single person, wanted to step up in my place. Veronica messaged first. Dan's scrambling. Clients are asking where you are. Then Diane. Paula's asking questions. Seems like she didn't know about your termination. Then Jason. Team's had enough. We want to talk. Monday morning, I called Hank Fletcher.
I accept your offer, I told him.
But I have one condition. Name it. If anyone from my old team applies to Everlink, I want them fairly considered. No promises, no favors. Just fairness. Done, Hank said without hesitation. If they're anything like you, they're exactly what we need. That afternoon, I signed the papers. Director of Pacific Northwest Operations. Higher salary, better benefits. A private office with floor-to-ceiling windows. A fresh start with power. And then, I got 7 emails. One from each core member of my old team. Subject line, coffee. We met Tuesday morning at a quiet cafe downtown. One by one they arrived. Jason, Veronica, Ethan, Louise, Diane, Gabriella, Kayla. They filled 2 tables, their faces tired but resolved. Ethan spoke first. Silverpath is imploding, Dan's micromanaging, Paula's furious. Clients are threatening to walk. Veronica added, the Wilson renewal is on fire. The client asked why you weren't involved. I listened silently as each person shared stories of chaos, fear, and growing distrust. Finally, Jason looked me in the eye.
We heard you took the job. At Everlink.
I didn't deny it. We want to come with you, Veronica said firmly. The rest nodded. I blinked. You all have stable jobs. Are you sure? What stability? Louise scoffed. If they'll fire you for going to a funeral, we're all disposable. Gabriella pulled out printed copies of job applications. We already applied, yesterday. I looked around the table. These weren't just employees. They were allies. They were family. Where you go, we go, Kayla said simply. I exhaled slowly, emotion rising. Let me make some calls. And for the first time in a long while, I felt something rare and powerful. Vindication. It was Monday morning. The sun hadn't fully risen yet when my phone rang. Caller ID, Paula McCormack, Silverpath's regional manager. I hesitated a second before answering. Good morning, Paula. Her voice was sharp but controlled. Melissa, we need to talk. I've just received 7 resignation letters, all from your former team, all effective immediately. I didn't respond right away. Care to explain? I'm not sure what explanation you're looking for, I said calmly. I no longer work for Silverpath. There was a pause. They're going to Everlink, aren't they? Where you just started.
I wouldn't know, I replied evenly. People make career choices for different reasons.
This isn't coincidental, she said, her tone harder now. It's about your termination, isn't it? I let the silence speak for itself. I've reviewed the situation, she continued. Dan didn't consult me before letting you go. If he had, I would never have approved it. That's between you and Dan, I said. But I do wonder why the regional manager wasn't involved in terminating a top-performing team lead. She sighed audibly. He claimed it was a time-sensitive issue, said it couldn't wait until I returned from Seattle. I trusted his judgment. That was your mistake, I replied gently, just like trusting people to stay loyal when loyalty wasn't given. The line went quiet. Melissa, she said finally, her voice almost pleading, now we're in trouble here. So the Wilson account is threatening to pull. Clients are asking questions. Is there anything we can do to fix this? I didn't raise my voice. I didn't gloat. I don't think this is about fixing anything. I think it's about facing the consequences. Can we meet? I don't see the point, Paula. I ended the call politely. Then I looked around my new office at Everlink. The light was golden, warm. My inbox buzzed with updates, interview slots for my former team, client onboarding, project outlines. Silverpath was unraveling not because I had torn it down, but because it had been built on the false belief that people were replaceable. They weren't. Not people like us. 1 week later, my office at Everlink felt like home. The walls were still bare, but the energy was alive. A new team was forming, some familiar faces, some fresh ones, but the spirit was the same, collaborative, focused, driven by mutual respect.
Jason was the first to get the offer.
Then Veronica. By Friday, all 7 members of my former team had been officially hired. Not because I pulled strings. Because they were qualified. Because they mattered. We didn't talk much about Silverpath. We didn't need to. The only thing that mattered was what we were building now. On Friday afternoon, I stood by the window of my new office, sipping coffee as I watched the city breathe beneath me. This wasn't revenge through fire. This was revenge through rebuilding, through quiet strength, through rising above. I didn't destroy anything. I didn't file a lawsuit. I didn't lash out. I simply moved forward with purpose. And others followed. Some stories don't end in courtrooms.
They end in better boardrooms.
Some battles aren't fought with fists or fury. They're won through integrity, clarity, and the simple power of knowing your worth. My name is Melissa Carter. I was fired for going to my father's funeral. And now I lead an entire division of the company that used to be their biggest fear. So if you're watching this and you've been betrayed for being human, if you've ever been punished for having a heart, know this. You are not weak. You are not alone. And sometimes, the best revenge is simply being irreplaceable somewhere else. Like, share, or leave a comment if this story hit home. Let's stand up for each other because dignity should never be negotiable.